Nostradamus warns of three countries that will collapse in 2025. Empires will crumble, borders will shift, the world as we know it will never be the same. But what if the downfall of three great nations was already foreseen centuries ago? These are not just the speculations of modern analysts. These are the cryptic warnings of Nostradamus, the 16th century prophet whose quatrains have seemingly predicted world-altering events for generations. Wars, revolutions, economic catastrophes. His words have echoed through time, leaving us to wonder, what does he see for 2025? As uncertainty grips the world, one chilling question remains. Did Nostradamus predict the collapse of three powerful countries? And if so, are we already witnessing the first signs of their downfall? Before we unravel these mysterious prophecies, take a moment to support this journey of wisdom. Like this video, share it with those who seek the truth, and subscribe to Buddhism Trail to uncover the secrets hidden within history. Prophecy number 1. France's next revolution. Throughout history, France has been no stranger to revolution, and Nostradamus, the famed 16th century prophet, may have foreseen yet another chapter of upheaval in its future. In one of his cryptic quatrains, he speaks of an enslaved populace raising their voices in protest, princes and lords held captive in prison, and headless idiots being treated as divine figures. These haunting words appear more relevant than ever when we look at France today, a country already witnessing waves of mass protests, labor strikes, and public outrage against policies perceived as unjust. The people of France have a long tradition of challenging authority, and the growing tensions across the nation suggest that dissatisfaction is reaching a boiling point. Could we be on the verge of a modern revolution? Recent years have seen intense unrest, from the Yellow Vest movement to widespread demonstrations against pension reforms. And history tells us that when the French people feel unheard, they do not hesitate to take drastic action. The phrase princes and lords held captive could be interpreted in many ways. Could this signal a major political scandal, the fall of key leaders, or an extreme shift in power? In times of crisis, revolutions are often fueled by the belief that those in charge no longer serve the people's interests. If discontent continues to escalate, the possibility of a radical transformation in France's political landscape cannot be ignored. The reference to headless idiots is particularly chilling. Some speculate that it may symbolize leaders losing control, a chaotic collapse of authority, or even an era where those who rise to power are unprepared for the responsibility. We have seen this throughout history, how nations in turmoil often embrace unexpected, even controversial, figures. When nations are in turmoil, they often embrace unexpected, even controversial figures to lead them through uncertain times. If France experiences another wave of political and social upheaval, the world will be watching closely, as such shifts in power rarely occur in isolation. France is not just another country, it plays a crucial role in global politics, economics, and European stability. A revolution in France would have ripple effects that extend far beyond its borders, influencing financial markets, alliances, and even the balance of power in Europe. But are we truly seeing history repeat itself, or is this simply another cycle of unrest? Nostradamus's prophecies are rarely straightforward. They are riddles, open to interpretation. While some may dismiss them as coincidence, others find undeniable connections between his words and the realities unfolding before us. Regardless of whether his predictions hold supernatural weight or serve as cautionary tales, one thing remains clear. The future is shaped by the choices we make today. Revolutions do not happen overnight. They are born from years of frustration, inequality, and resistance to change. If history is any indication, the fate of France, and possibly the world, is still unwritten. We stand at a crossroads where understanding the lessons of the past can help us navigate the uncertainty of the future. What do you think? Are we witnessing the early signs of a new revolution? Or is this just another moment of unrest in France's long and turbulent history? Prophecy number 2. China's internal collapse century 8, quatrain 17. Those at ease will suddenly be cast down, the world put into trouble by three brothers. Their enemies will seize the marine city. Hunger, fire, blood, plague, all evils doubled. For decades, China has been seen as an unstoppable force in the world, its economy booming, its influence expanding, its government seemingly unshakable. But what if that illusion of stability is just that, an illusion? Nostradamus's prophecy hints at a sudden fall from power, a moment when those in control are unexpectedly overthrown. Could this mean a political coup, widespread protests, or even a civil war? The world has already seen increasing unrest within China, economic downturns, growing censorship, and crackdowns on dissent. But is something much bigger on the horizon? The phrase three brothers have puzzled historians for centuries. Some believe it refers to China, the US, and Russia, three dominant global powers locked in a struggle that could change the world order. Others argue that it points to factions within China itself, rival leaders, or military groups vying for control. If true, an internal power struggle could destabilize the nation in ways we have never seen before. And then comes the most ominous part. Hunger, fire, blood, plague, all evils doubled. China has already faced economic slowdowns, food supply concerns, and growing public dissatisfaction. If these pressures intensify, could we see a collapse from within? Could this be the moment history books will mark as the breaking point? And what about the marine city Nostradamus mentions? Some speculate this could mean a major coastal metropolis, Shanghai, Hong Kong, or even a military stronghold in the South China Sea. With ongoing tensions in Taiwan and territorial disputes in the region, could this prophecy be predicting an invasion, a blockade, or a large-scale conflict that drags the world into chaos? If China falls into turmoil, the effects will ripple across the globe. Economies will tremble, trade routes will collapse, and military conflicts could escalate. Are we truly on the edge of a world-changing event in 2025? Take a moment to reflect. The signs are there: political tensions, economic uncertainty, civil unrest. Are we witnessing the beginning of Nostradamus's warning? What do you think? Is this prophecy unfolding before our eyes? If you believe a storm is coming, type "the storm is coming" in the comments below. Let's discuss, what does the future hold, and how should we prepare for what's ahead? Prophecy number 3. A U.S. leader will fall. Imagine, for a moment, that history is whispering to us through the words of Nostradamus. His cryptic verses have been debated for centuries, but one prophecy in particular sends a chill down the spine. The great man will be struck down in the day by a thunderbolt, an evil deed foretold by the bearer of a petition. What could this mean for 2025? Many believe Nostradamus was warning us about a great leader falling a moment that could send shockwaves across the world. The United States, a nation already wrestling with deep political divisions, economic uncertainty, and social unrest, could be on the verge of an unprecedented crisis. Could this prophecy be hinting at an assassination, an unexpected attack, or even a scandal so immense that it shatters the political foundation? The phrase thunderbolt suggests something sudden and shocking an event that changes everything in an instant. And what about the eerie notion that another falls at night? Does this imply a chain reaction, a moment where one crisis triggers another, spiraling into chaos? When we look back at history, we see that the fall of powerful leaders has often led to turmoil. Think of Julius Caesar, Abraham Lincoln, or John F. Kennedy. Their assassinations reshaped the world, leading to wars, economic collapses, and shifts in power. If such a fate were to befall the U.S. in 2025, what would happen next? Could we witness a struggle for leadership, a nation divided not only by ideology, but possibly by state lines? Some political analysts warn that rising tensions between certain states could even lead to discussions of secession, fracturing the very fabric of the United States. But beyond fear, there is a deeper lesson here. In Buddhism, there is a saying, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love." This is the eternal rule. If conflict is inevitable, then so is the choice of how we respond. Do we meet crisis with division, or do we seek unity even in the darkest times? Nostradamus may have given us a warning, but we still hold the power to shape our own future. So now I turn the question to you. If history repeats itself, what can we learn from the past to ensure a better tomorrow? Do you see the signs, or do you believe the future is still in our hands? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and together, let's explore what lies ahead. Final thoughts. Thank you for joining us in today's video. Before we dive deeper, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to you. It's truly a pleasure to have you as part of our community. Feel free to share your thoughts or personal impressions in the comments. If you're not sure what to say, simply comment. I am here for wisdom if you're new. I seek deeper truths if you've been with us for a while. Your engagement means a lot and motivates us to continue bringing you insightful content. All right, let's continue this journey together, shall we? Advice for turbulent times. Teaching Buddhism. In a world filled with uncertainty, challenges, and rapid change, many of us struggle to find balance and peace. How do we navigate difficult times without being overwhelmed by fear, stress, or anxiety? Buddhism offers timeless wisdom that can help us cultivate resilience, clarity, and inner peace, no matter what storms may come our way. In this video, we'll explore essential Buddhist teachings that provide guidance for turbulent times. From embracing impermanence to cultivating mindfulness, from letting go of attachment to responding with compassion, these lessons can transform the way we see and experience the world. Rather than resisting change or being consumed by worry, we can learn to move through life's uncertainties with wisdom and grace. Join us as we uncover the profound insights of Buddhist philosophy and discover how these teachings remain as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. Let's begin this journey of wisdom together. 1. Embrace impermanence. Life is an ever-changing river, never still, never predictable. One of the deepest teachings in Buddhism is the truth of impermanence anicca. Everything in this world, from towering mountains to the smallest drop of rain, from our greatest successes to our deepest failures, is in a constant state of flux. Clinging to the illusion that things should remain the same only leads to suffering. The more we resist change, the more we struggle. As the Buddha said, nothing is forever except change itself. We see this throughout history. Great empires have risen and crumbled. Economies have flourished and collapsed. Even in our personal lives, relationships shift, health fluctuates, and circumstances evolve. The predictions of Nostradamus about revolutions and collapse remind us of a simple truth. everything is transient. But rather than fearing this, we can learn to embrace it. Instead of resisting instability, we can recognize it as a natural part of existence and find peace within it. Modern life often conditions us to seek control over our careers, relationships, finances, and even time itself. We are taught to chase stability as if it were a permanent state, yet, life constantly proves otherwise. Consider the stock market. No matter how high it soars, it will eventually dip. The same goes for our personal lives. There will be moments of joy and moments of hardship. The key to peace is not in avoiding change, but in flowing with it. A tree that bends with the wind does not break, while a rigid one snaps in the storm. When we stop grasping at illusions of permanence, we free ourselves from fear. We stop seeing uncertainty as a threat and start recognizing it as an opportunity for growth. This doesn't mean we should be indifferent to loss or avoid making plans. Rather, it means cultivating a mindset that welcomes change rather than resists it. If a relationship ends, if a job is lost, if life takes an unexpected turn, there is space for grief, but also for acceptance. The mind that is flexible adapts. The mind that is rigid suffers. The samurai Miyamoto Musashi once said, "Accept everything just the way it is." This is the heart of wisdom, to trust in the ebb and flow of life rather than clinging desperately to what must inevitably pass. When we internalize this, we unlock a deeper sense of freedom. In turbulent times, this lesson becomes even more essential. The world is uncertain, and chaos may come in waves. But your inner peace does not have to depend on external circumstances. When faced with change, ask yourself, am I resisting or am I flowing? Let go of attachment to how things should be and embrace what is. This is not surrender, it is wisdom. When you stop fearing impermanence, you begin to truly live. Cultivate mindfulness. Number 2. Cultivate mindfulness. In turbulent times, the mind often becomes a battlefield of fear and uncertainty. When the future feels unclear, anxiety takes hold, pulling us into a cycle of worry and distress. But there is a powerful way to break free from this suffering by cultivating mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present, aware of our thoughts, emotions, and surroundings, without being swept away by them. Instead of reacting impulsively to life's difficulties, we learn to observe them with clarity and wisdom. Through meditation and conscious awareness, we develop the ability to witness our emotions without being controlled by them. This shift in perspective allows us to respond to life's challenges with patience and understanding, rather than fear and frustration. When we focus on the present moment, we free ourselves from the burden of excessive speculation and worst-case scenarios, ones that often exist only in our minds. A mind grounded in the present is like a calm lake, undisturbed by passing storms. It reflects reality as it is, without distortion. A well-known Buddhist story illustrates this beautifully. One day, a young monk approached his teacher, worried about the future. "Master, I'm afraid of what lies ahead," he confessed. The master handed him a glass of water and sprinkled in a handful of salt. "Drink," he instructed. The young monk took a sip and immediately winced. "It's too salty," he said. The master then led him to a vast lake, sprinkled the same amount of salt into the water, and told him to drink again. This time, the monk tasted only the cool freshness of the lake. "The salt is like suffering," the master explained. "If your mind is small, even a little pain will overwhelm you. But if you expand your awareness, your suffering will no longer consume you." This is the essence of mindfulness. It expands the mind so that difficulties no longer feel unbearable. So, how can you cultivate this awareness in your daily life? Start by taking a few moments each day to breathe deeply and simply observe your thoughts. Instead of judging or suppressing emotions, acknowledge them with kindness. Ask yourself, am I truly present, or am I lost in thoughts of the past or future? Bringing your attention back to the now helps you find stability, even in uncertain times. Life will always have moments of difficulty, but with mindfulness, you gain the power to meet them with a steady heart. The lesson here is simple. The more present you are, the less suffering will control you. Challenges will come and go, but if your mind is vast like the lake, even hardship will dissolve into something manageable. In this way, mindfulness becomes not just a practice, but a path to inner peace, no matter what storms may arise. Respond with compassion. In times of uncertainty and conflict, when emotions run high and divisions seem impossible to bridge, it is easy to fall into the trap of anger and resentment. But Buddhism teaches us a profound truth. Hatred never ends through more hatred, only through love. In understanding can true resolution be found. The Buddha himself said, "Hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is an eternal law." When we react to turmoil with hostility, we only add fuel to the fire, deepening the divide and perpetuating suffering. But what if, instead of responding with anger, we chose compassion? What if we saw those who oppose us not as enemies, but as individuals who, like us, are shaped by their own fears, struggles, and misunderstandings? This shift in perspective does not mean we ignore injustice or remain passive in the face of wrongdoing. Rather, it means we respond with wisdom, patience, and an open heart. The practice of metta, or loving kindness, is one of the most powerful tools we have to dissolve conflict. When we cultivate genuine goodwill toward others, even those who challenge us, we create a ripple effect that can soften hardened hearts and open doors to dialogue. Imagine how the world would change if, in the face of aggression, we met others with calmness rather than fury, with understanding rather than judgment. Wouldn't that inspire a different kind of conversation, one rooted in mutual respect rather than opposition? This doesn't mean we won't feel anger, frustration, or sadness. These are natural emotions. But the key is not to let them control us. Instead, we can transform them into a force for good. A compassionate response not only preserves our own inner peace, but also sets an example for others to follow. It reminds those around us that there is another way, a way that leads to healing rather than destruction. So, the next time you find yourself in the middle of conflict, ask yourself, am I responding in a way that contributes to peace, or am I adding to the suffering? The choice is always in our hands, and when we choose compassion, we not only change our own hearts, but help to transform the world around us. Number 4. Let go of attachment. Letting go of attachment is one of the most profound yet challenging lessons in life. Much of human suffering stems from clinging to material wealth, social status, relationships, or even deeply held beliefs. The Buddha wisely taught, attachment is the root of suffering, reminding us that everything in life is impermanent. Yet, we often resist this truth, seeking stability in a world that is constantly changing. When we become attached, we tie our happiness to external conditions, believing that wealth will bring security, that relationships will always remain the same, or that our views are absolute. But life moves like a river, ever flowing and shifting, and when we refuse to adapt, we create our own suffering. Imagine holding on to a rope that is being pulled away, gripping tighter, only burns your hands. In the same way, Attachment causes pain when we resist the natural course of life. When economic downturns shake our finances, when political landscapes shift, or when we lose people we love, we suffer not just from the events themselves, but from our unwillingness to accept them. This does not mean we should not care. Rather, it means we must approach life with open hands rather than clenched fists. You only lose what you cling to, the Buddha said, reminding us that true peace comes when we embrace change rather than fight it. In modern life, we see attachment everywhere chasing after success, obsessing over social media validation, fearing the loss of control. But real freedom lies in detachment, not as indifference, but as a deep understanding that nothing lasts forever. This does not mean we do not love or strive for goals, but that we do so without fear of loss. When we cultivate detachment, we remain calm in turbulent times, adapting rather than breaking. The key is mindfulness, observing our attachments without letting them rule us. When we release our grip on what we cannot control, we make space for peace, wisdom, and resilience. Letting go is not about giving up. It is about trusting that life will unfold as it should and finding contentment in the present moment. In the end, the less we cling, the lighter we become, and the freer our hearts will feel. Number 5. Control the mind, not the world. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how much we try, we cannot control everything around us. Many people spend their lives attempting to shape the world to their desires, chasing wealth, power, or security, only to be met with disappointment when things don't go as planned. Buddhism teaches a different approach. Instead of trying to control the outside world, focus on mastering your own mind. When you realize that external events are beyond your control, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. True peace comes not from manipulating circumstances, but from developing inner resilience. A turbulent world does not have to mean a turbulent mind. The Buddha once told the story of a man shot by an arrow. Instead of seeking immediate treatment, he insisted on knowing who shot it, what kind of wood it was made from, and where it came from. But the Buddha warned that by the time all these questions were answered, the man would die. The lesson: when we waste our energy trying to control what is outside of us, we delay our own healing. The same applies to the struggles of daily life. Whether it is political turmoil, financial instability, or personal conflicts, the more we obsess over things beyond our grasp, the more we suffer. So how do we train the mind? Meditation is a powerful tool, but so is mindfulness in everyday life. Notice your thoughts without being controlled by them. When anger arises, observe it. When anxiety creeps in, acknowledge it, but do not let it consume you. Like a tree standing firm in a storm, you can remain steady even as the winds of change blow around you. Ask yourself, what would happen if you let go of the need to control everything? How much of your stress comes from resisting things as they are? When you focus on controlling your reaction instead of the world, you cultivate a mind that is unshaken by external chaos. The real power lies not in bending the world to your will, but in learning to stand still and at peace within it. Choose stillness over panic. When the world feels like it's spinning out of control, your first instinct might be to react perhaps with fear, frustration, or the urgent need to do something, anything to regain a sense of stability. You see people stockpiling supplies, making rash decisions, or venting their anxieties in anger. But have you ever considered that the most powerful response might not be action but stillness? Buddhism teaches that in moments of crisis, stillness is not weakness, it is wisdom. The Buddha once said, "Do not look for a sanctuary in anyone except yourself." This reminds us that true peace doesn't come from controlling the world around us, but from mastering the world within. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means pausing long enough to see reality clearly. Imagine a pond when it is disturbed. The water becomes muddy, and nothing can be seen beneath the surface. But when the water is still, it becomes clear, reflecting everything with perfect clarity. Our minds work the same way. When we allow fear and panic to take over, our thoughts become clouded, leading us to react impulsively rather than wisely. But when we cultivate stillness through deep breaths, mindful observation, and self-awareness, we create the space to see things as they truly are. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment and aversion. When we desperately cling to certainty or resist change, we create our own distress. But what if, instead of resisting the storm, we chose to become like the eye of the storm, calm, aware, and unshaken? This doesn't mean ignoring the situation or refusing to act. It means responding from a place of wisdom rather than fear. Ask yourself, in this moment, am I reacting or responding? Am I being pulled by fear, or am I choosing a path of clarity? The world will always experience turbulence, whether in personal struggles or global crises. But your inner peace does not have to be shaken by external chaos. Practicing stillness allows you to step back, observe, and make choices that serve not just your immediate emotions, but your long-term well-being and the well-being of those around you. When you learn to embrace stillness, you stop being a wave tossed by the ocean and become the ocean itself, deep, vast, and undisturbed by the passing winds. So, in your next moment of uncertainty, take a deep breath, ground yourself in awareness, and remember, true strength is not in forceful action, but in mindful stillness. What will you choose in your next moment of crisis, panic, or peace? 7. Accept suffering as part of life. Suffering is not an anomaly. It is woven into the very fabric of existence. The Buddha's first noble truth teaches us that dukkha suffering, dissatisfaction, and hardship is an inescapable part of life. Yet most people spend their lives resisting this reality, believing that suffering is unfair or avoidable. But resistance only deepens our pain. Instead of fearing hardship, we must learn to embrace it as a teacher. Just as fire hardens steel, adversity strengthens our minds and spirits. The trials we face refine us, forcing us to confront our weaknesses, cultivate resilience, and develop wisdom. Consider the great figures in history, leaders, philosophers, even enlightened beings. None were exempt from suffering. What set them apart was their response to it. The Japanese Zen master Shunryu Suzuki once said, "Life is like stepping onto a boat that is about to sail out to sea and sink." This might sound bleak, but it is a profound reminder that impermanence and suffering are natural parts of life, not exceptions. The sooner we accept this truth, the freer we become. When we stop resisting suffering, we begin to see the hidden lessons within it. A lost job may teach us detachment from material security. A failed relationship can reveal our attachment patterns. Illness reminds us of life's fragility. Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" This shift in mindset transforms suffering from an enemy into a wise guide. In turbulent times, we must remember that no storm lasts forever. But the way we endure it shapes our future. Look at the tallest trees, they do not fight against the wind, but bend and sway, allowing the storm to pass. We too must develop this flexibility, understanding that pain will come and go, but our inner strength determines how we emerge on the other side. The Buddha himself faced betrayal, criticism, and immense hardship, yet his acceptance of suffering allowed him to transcend it. As he said, Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The difficulties of life are not meant to break us. By accepting suffering as part of our journey, we cultivate true inner peace, not the fragile peace that depends on external comfort, but the unshakable peace that comes from wisdom and understanding. So, the next time life tests you, do not resist. Embrace the lesson, endure with grace, and know that on the other side of suffering, there is growth, clarity, and transformation. 8. Be prepared, but not fearful. Difficult times are inevitable, but how we approach them makes all the difference. In Buddhism, we are taught to prepare for challenges not with fear, but with wisdom. Fear clouds the mind, making it restless and anxious, while preparation gives us confidence and stability. Just like a farmer who tends to his fields before the storm arrives, we too should take practical steps to face difficulties, but without being consumed by worry. Having resources, making plans, and thinking ahead are all forms of wise preparation. Yet, when we allow fear to take over, we suffer twice, once from the situation itself, and once from our anxious thoughts about it. The Buddha taught that attachment to outcomes leads to suffering, and excessive worry about the future is one such attachment. Instead, we should cultivate a mind that is ready but not distressed, alert but not overwhelmed. There is a Zen story about a great samurai who sought wisdom from a Zen master. The samurai asked, "Master, how do I prepare for battle without fear?" The Zen master, instead of answering directly, handed the samurai a teacup and began pouring tea. He continued pouring even after the cup overflowed. The samurai exclaimed, "Master, stop! The cup is full, it cannot hold more." The Zen master smiled and said, "Like this cup, your mind is full of worry and fear. How can you prepare for battle if your mind is already flooded with thoughts of defeat? Empty your mind of fear, and you will make space for clarity, strategy, and strength." This simple yet profound teaching reminds us that fear fills the mind with unnecessary burdens, preventing us from responding to situations with wisdom. When we prepare with clarity instead of fear, we act from a place of strength rather than panic. Think about this in your own life. How often do you let fear dictate your actions? Have you ever faced a problem and realized later that most of your suffering came from worrying about it rather than the problem itself? When we acknowledge that fear does not change reality, we begin to see that our energy is better spent cultivating resilience, adaptability, and wisdom. Instead of fearing what may come, we can ask ourselves, what can I do right now to be ready while still maintaining peace of mind? This shift in perspective transforms our approach to life. When we let go of excessive worry, we free ourselves to respond skillfully to whatever challenges arise. The key lesson here is balance, prepare for the future, but do not be consumed by it. Worry drains energy, while wise preparation strengthens us. In uncertain times, our greatest asset is not fear, but a calm and clear mind. Train yourself to take necessary actions without falling into the trap of endless anxiety. True strength comes not from trying to control everything, but from knowing that, no matter what happens, you have the wisdom to face it. Number 9. Learn to adapt without losing yourself. Life is constantly shifting, unpredictable, and full of challenges that test our patience, resilience, and inner strength. In times of uncertainty, when the ground beneath us feels unsteady, it is not sheer force that helps us survive. It is the ability to adapt while staying true to who we are. Buddhism teaches that impermanence anicca is the very nature of existence. Everything is in a state of flux, and resisting this reality only leads to suffering. But how do we navigate change without losing ourselves? The key is to be like water fluid, flexible, yet unwavering in its essence. The great Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "Water is fluid, soft, and yielding, but water will wear away rock, which is rigid and cannot yield." As a rule, whatever is fluid, soft, and yielding will overcome whatever is rigid and hard. This is a profound lesson in adaptability. True strength is not about rigidly clinging to how things were, but about responding to life's changes with wisdom and grace. In Buddhism, the middle way, Majjhima Patipada, teaches us balance, neither extreme attachment nor total apathy, but a steady course guided by mindfulness and ethical integrity. Imagine a tree in a storm. The rigid branches that refuse to bend are the ones that snap, while the flexible branches sway with the wind yet remain rooted in the earth. Are you resisting change, holding on too tightly to a past that no longer exists? Or can you learn to move with the present moment without losing yourself? When faced with unexpected challenges, instead of reacting with fear or frustration, we can pause, observe, and ask ourselves, what is this moment teaching me? How can I respond skillfully without compromising my values? The Buddha himself faced countless challenges, betrayal, hardship, criticism, but he never abandoned his path. He adjusted to circumstances with wisdom, never allowing external difficulties to shake his inner peace. So, what does this mean for us in daily life? It means embracing change not as an enemy, but as a teacher. If we lose a job, if a relationship ends, if the world around us shifts in ways we did not expect, we can choose to see these moments as opportunities for growth rather than disasters. As the Buddha said, nothing is forever except change. Resisting this truth leads to suffering, but accepting it allows us to find freedom. This does not mean surrendering our core values or losing our sense of self. It means understanding that we are not defined by external circumstances, but by how we respond to them. Adaptability is not weakness, it is wisdom in action. The next time life challenges you with uncertainty, ask yourself, am I meeting this moment with resistance or with openness? True resilience is not about clinging to what was, but about meeting each situation with awareness, compassion, and inner strength. Just as a river carves its way through mountains, not by fighting the rocks, but by flowing around them, we too can move through life's turbulence without losing who we are. What would happen if you embraced change instead of fearing it? Would you find a deeper sense of peace? The answer lies within you. Conclusion: Nostradamus warns of 3 countries that will collapse in 2025. As we reflect on these prophecies and the wisdom of the past, one thing becomes clear: the future is never set in stone. Whether Nostradamus's predictions will come to pass or not, history has shown us that great nations rise and fall, and change is the only constant. But rather than fearing what lies ahead, we can prepare ourselves with awareness, wisdom, and resilience. What do you think? Are we witnessing the signs of a global shift, or are these just patterns that have repeated throughout history? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Buddhism Trail. Turn on notifications so you won't miss our upcoming explorations into history, prophecy, and philosophy. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay mindful, and seek wisdom.